Hello, Intrepid followers, subscribers, and watchers of my YouTube videos. Today I'm doing a really fun video. I got this idea from another creator named BJ Kicks. I'll put a link to his video down below. And he was doing a video about comic books and his comic books and his favorite comic books. But more generally, not just a specific comic book, but a publisher of comic books. So this is my video based on his, and it's about why I like DC Comics. So let's find out why. A few different comic books that I really love and I like, and I think I want to share with you and explains why I love DC Comics. I love comic books. I love reading them. I've been reading them now since I was about 10 years old. And I'm something. I was trying to get through my comic books. I'm in the middle of reorganizing them, so I can't find the original DC comic book that I first ever got. But I have one here that represents what I love, and one of the first comic books I read, and that is Wonder Woman. I first read Wonder Woman. This was one of the first comic books I ever read. Not this specific one. This is a newer one. This one's actually promoting the movie, the recent movie. But Wonder Woman intrigued me and enticed me because I love Greek mythology, and the cover of the one I love is from 1985, I believe, and is Wonder Woman #1, and it's very iconic because it shows a lot of Greek mythology, a lot of Greek inspiration on it. And I thought, oh, I love this cover. I want to read more about Wonder Woman. I've heard of Wonder Woman before because, well, I'd seen some of the TV series that Linda Carter had done, and I loved that. I thought it was really fun. So this was just like an extension of that. That's where it sort of flourished for DC Comics. The next comic books I got were what are called the New Teen Titans. I love the New Teen Titans because it's a group of teenagers that are mostly made up of kids or teenagers who are around my age, a little older, who are all in the shadow of someone else. They were living their lives based on what other people wanted them to do, and they didn't want to do that anymore. They wanted to live their own lives, their own way. And so that's why I started reading this. And again, one of the interesting things is both Wonder Woman and Teen Titans at that time period were being drawn by the same person, George Perez. So it was really cool to get into a book that had the same drawings and stuff. And at the time, I didn't realize how iconic Perez and also Marv Wolfman was. Marv Wolfman being the writer of this stuff. But they helped usher in what we would definitely say today is the new age of comic books for DC Comics, and it's this, Crisis on Infinite Earths. I picked this up later. I think it was about 8 years later I picked this up. This tells the story of everything that changed in the 80s and led them to doing what they did to the comic books in the DC comic book world. They did this is the first big crossover event they did where everything got destroyed. People died like dead. They weren't coming back, well, for a while. And it took it in such a new direction. And getting to go finally read it was just phenomenal, and getting to read it in a trade paperback form where it's all together, as opposed to spending that year of 1980 from 83 to 84 reading each issue and finding out who died and who didn't. Whew, it's extreme. It's an iconic thing. It's up there with like Watchmen, which is another well-known comic book in the DC universe, but that one was more dark. I wasn't looking for something that dark at first. Well, so yeah, in the 80s, I was really reading those, and I came upon some other characters I really loved, and I just kept reading them. Another bunch of characters I really loved was the Legion of Superheroes. Now, when I was reading it, it was sort of a dystopian future where all these heroes were much older, but then they realized, oh crap, something happened, we needed to fix it. And they were able to fix it and get back to this way of living, which they're another teen book. I really like the team book, but I like this team book and this team book because it felt more like it was a found family, than the Justice League, which was more like a group of adults coming together to work together, like at a job. Which they weren't really, but they were. That's what I saw Justice League as. So I really wasn't into Justice League at the time, and I thought those were the ones I really loved. And the crossover events were really great. One of the other kinds of comic books that I love that they do is they have a very great supernatural themed stuff. This is a more modern DC comic that's supernatural themed. It's called Justice League Dark, but it has one of my favorite characters, Dr. Fate. I really enjoy Dr. Fate because of just the character's development and who he was. When I got into him, they had this really cool thing where they had it where his wife, Inza, would be the body for Dr. Fate, and Kent, the husband, would be the mind for Dr. Fate. And so they put on this helmet together to form Dr. Fate. And it was a really cool idea of like combining these things to show that it wasn't just one person to be Dr. Fate. So the crossover events, like I was just talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths, the other crossover event that happened during the time I was reading was 0 Hour. This was a very, it was an interesting thing. They had realized that this was great, but there were still some things they wanted to fix, so they decided to do this. So it was a great crossover event that they did, but it was to help fix some things in the comic book world to make it a little easier for people to get into, because that's what this did. It was to help make things easier for people. And it was really great. I loved both of those crossover events. One of the other things that happened when I first started reading DC Comics was they started a new line of comic books under their publishing called Vertigo. This is a more modern Vertigo book. It's called the Sheriff of Babylon. It's a great book. This is the first issue. I got it as part of one of my hauls I did. So I'll put a link to the hauls down below, but I haven't read it yet, but it's really important and really great to read. But the Vertigo line is important because they allowed them to do much more mature storylines, as opposed to, you know, Superman and the Legion of Superheroes, or even Wonder Woman, because these were more heroes. They saved people. It didn't get very dark, but in these books, it got a little more dark of a tone, much more mature features. One of the biggest, most important things that we've got, well, two that we've gotten out of it is Sandman and John Constantine. There's been a few different things built around them, and the creators of them have gone on to do other things that are really great as well. So that was another thing I liked about it. I didn't start reading, of course, Vertigo stuff until I was a little older because my parents wouldn't let me. But that was the whole point. It was supposed to be for mature readers. But I enjoy them so much because they keep going. Like I just showed you here, Wonder Woman, this is issue number 750. 750. Since the 80s, they've been doing the numbering the same, haven't changed it. 750. That's how far it's gone. Another character I like, well, I'm sure you can tell what character I like, is Nightwing. And he comes from the Teen Titans. And he's really great because, again, it's that person coming out of the shadow of someone else to become themselves. And that's who Nightwing is. And this is the 75th issue. They're on number 79 of this volume of issues, because they've had a few volumes of Nightwing. And the way he's doing things now is really interesting. The story, like I said, the storyline is different because he doesn't live in Gotham, really. He lives in a city up river or up near Gotham called Bloodhaven, which is just as bad. They say it's sort of like Bloodhaven is the parallel, or almost like Atlantic City in some respects. But I love the storylines that go on with him. I love the character development, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I do like Batman. I will, and I have been reading Batman recently. He's still a good character to come back to, but of my favorite Bat character family members, Nightwing is up there, and then also a more modern retelling of a character is Batwoman. There was always a Batwoman before in the 60s and 70s, but it wasn't the best Batwoman. But this is a retelling of Batwoman. Really cool about her is she's very independent from the other Bat family members. She's also Jewish. She was in the armed services, and she's a lesbian. And so I love the character for who she is and what she does within the Bat family universe and how different she is. You're getting a theme here. I like difference. And that's what I liked about the comic books that I am reading and I have read from them, is the sense of differentness and feeling like you're not alone in your differentness. And I think that's what I love about DC Comics. The characters are amazing, the characters are different, and the people who are writing them nowadays, the people who are involved in the storylines, they're doing a great job of giving you a sense of these are heroes, but they also have a humanity to them. You know, when Watchmen came out, it sort of jolted the comic book industry and made everything seem a little more darker, and it's played out in the movies. If you haven't noticed, the movies are a little darker. But in the long run, it's actually helped them to see, okay, there's some humanity to the characters. We can do things that aren't like normal for the comic book industry by having an imprint that's a much more mature readers. The crossover events, they've been doing a lot of crossovers. The ones they've done lately aren't as great, but you know, when you create something really great, it's hard to like make that happen again. But they've tried a few times. But I think I've rambled on enough about why I really like DC Comics, and I will continue to read DC Comics. You know, I'm going to do this as a series. I'm going to do why I love Marvel Comics, why I love some of the more independent comic book companies. So I'll just do this as a series, and I hope you like it. And tell me in the comments below, what is your favorite DC comic book or DC comic book character? What do you like about them? And of course, as usual, don't forget to like this video. And if you aren't already subscribing, please go ahead and subscribe. And I'll have more information at the end here. At the end of the video, there'll be some other videos that you can watch. And thanks for joining me. And there's other fun stuff and interesting things in the description. So please check out the description to learn more about me and about how you can help in the world. And thanks for joining me, and I will see you later.